I know you're frowning. The title is weird, I know. But if you could just give me a moment, I'll explain. I have to be fast, though. I don't know how close they are. Essentially, I ordered myself on the dark web. I'm a drug user, I'll admit it. Weed is my usual go-to, but I buy that off my friend. If, however, I want to get something a little heavier, like acid or coke, I just order it off the dark web. It's surprisingly simple. A few clicks, some Bitcoin transfers, and then boom, I have my acid in my P.O. box. But I'm also a curious guy. The dark web has always intrigued me. Up until a few days ago, I had only been on there to buy drugs off-site some of my friends gave to me. But late one night I was sober and at home, which was a rare thing for me. So since I was bored, I decided to boot up my Tor browser and try to see what sort of messed up crap I could find on the dark web. If you've ever been on the dark web, you'll know that you can't just search up red rooms or Hitman for Hire and get results. No, you have to find links to these websites first. So I hopped back on Google again to try and find some links to a messed up website. I know it's weird that I was actively searching for the worst, but as soon as I got on the dark web that night, a sense of morbid curiosity overcame me. Anyway, I spent a little while trying to find some links. Anything that I found, though, was either too tame for me or the links didn't work. At this point, I was about ready to give up, and I wish I had. But in one final attempt, I clicked on Reddit. Hopping into r/deepweb, I didn't think I would find anything, so I just scrolled through hot for about half an hour before sorting by new. Then I found it. One simple text post titled, Slayer's Assassination and Life-Ruining Services. In the text box, in the post, was what seemed to be just a random assortment of numbers and letters. ZY3DKY TCAUB KQ2Y3, for those of you curious. It took my tired brain a second to figure out what it was, but I realized pretty quickly. It was a link, presumably to a Hitman website. So I decided to paste the link into my dark web browser, and what do you know? It worked. But before I decided to go any further, I figured I should go back to OP's profile to see if they have posted any other dark web links. However, when I went back to the post in question, OP's profile was deleted. Weird. Anyway, I reopened my dark web tab and hopped onto the site. Up along the top of the website was its name, Slayer's Assassination and Life-Ruining Services, and next to it what looked to be a skull inside a crosshair. I chuckled when I saw that. The site must be fake. Upon scrolling down, however, I was not disappointed. There was a paragraph of white text on a black background, and a small box to the right of that text that just said place an order. The text was the main part, though, as it took up most of the page. It read, Slayer's Assassination and Life-Ruining Services offers everything from acid attack, crippling, blinding, castration, torture, rape, beatings, and good old death. We have the lowest prices out of any other company running similar services, and we are worldwide. We have a dedicated and experienced group of staff based all over the world, so if you need someone to be assassinated, or maybe you just want them scarred for life, don't hesitate to contact us. Again, I laughed. This had to be satire, right? Hell, I was even tempted to order it on someone just to see what would happen. Ironically, I actually have a half-decent job, so I can afford to. Better not risk it, though, I thought to myself. I was about to close my computer and call it for a night when I heard a knock at the door. I live alone, so it was unusual to get visitors, especially so late at night. But when I opened the door, it was just my good buddy Mark, who also happened to be my weed plug. As I opened the door, he didn't hesitate to let himself in and shove a big baggie full of pot in my face. This, dude, is the best crap I've had in a minute. We gotta try some. I couldn't say no. Cut to a couple hours later. It's early morning and Mark and I are chilling on my couch, both blazed as hell. He suddenly decides to get up, and I assume he's going to get some leftover pizza, but he walks over to my desk and computer. "Slayer's assassinations. Are you gonna kill someone or something?" he mutters. "What?" I reply. "Your computer, dude. It's got some hacker stuff on it." "It's the dark web, man. Don't mess with it." At this point, I'm still on my couch, half asleep and not paying full attention. However, I sat up pretty fast when he said the words, "Hey man, let's order a hitman on you." I hopped up and walked over to my PC. Part of my brain was screaming, "No, what the hell are you doing?" But the majority of my brain, which was also the high part, was thinking about how funny it would be to order a hitman on myself. So I agree. I did make him get out of my chair though, because I didn't want him seeing what my credit card numbers were as I transferred some Bitcoin. At the end, I wrote down all my personal details like my address, age, and even a photo. I had to select what I wanted to happen to me. I just selected plain old assassination, as it was actually cheaper than some of the other things. I could have paid an extra couple of grand to be beaten before my death, but even my high brain didn't want to splash the cash too much on my own death. God, this is ridiculous. Anyway, I placed the order, and then replied to a confirmation email, and boom, it was done. A couple of clicks and I had ordered myself on the deep web. Mark and I laughed about it for a while, but then he left about an hour later and I fell asleep not too long after. I woke up around 9 a.m., which meant I got at least 6 hours of sleep, even if it felt like I got 3. I got up and out of bed, threw on some track pants and a cotton shirt. Yes, I sleep naked. And brewed myself a coffee before sitting down to play some games and just enjoy my Sunday. You can imagine how shocked I was when I saw that I had ordered my death the previous night. Even though I thought the site was bull, I still felt a pit open up in my stomach. Even when I'm high, I usually can make sensible decisions. I chuckled. Not like I could remember it anyway, but I guess Mark's new stuff really was good. I would assume a normal human being would do something else, but I was still kind of out of it from the night before, so I just carried on with my day. I was a little more paranoid, sure, but as I said, I just assumed it was bull. I even laughed at the email I got from the website, saying that their hitman had been dispatched and was on its way. It was like ordering a package off Amazon. I was tempted to email back and ask for same-day delivery. But I didn't need to ask, because that's exactly what I got. I didn't see it arrive, but around the time I started to cook myself a crap dinner, I noticed a blackened-out sedan parked on the other side of the road from my house. I didn't live in a rural area, but there was a lot of trees and bushes between each of the houses on my street, so I would be surprised if any other house saw the car except for mine. At this point, I was freaking out. What if this site was real? Even though I'm a big guy, I was freaking out. I don't own any weapons aside from a slightly larger than average kitchen knife. Screw it. I'm confronting it, I decided. I put on a hoodie and slid the knife into my front pocket before waltzing on out of my house and walking right up to the driver's side window of the vehicle. Even I was astonished at my own courage. Knocking on the window, nothing happened. It was rather anticlimactic. I was fully prepared to have to fight for my life, all because I did something really dumb while I was baked. But like I said, nothing happened. I even put my head right up to the windows, as if there was a reflection, to try and get a better look to see what's inside. I could barely see what was inside of the car, but all I could make out were 2 empty seats. No one was even inside. I had got all hyped up for nothing. I decided to wait out by the car for a bit, but after half an hour or so, I was hungry, and I had to go back inside to take my dinner out of the oven. I swear, it was only a minute between me going inside to take my dinner out of the oven and looking back out of the window and the car being gone. I didn't even hear it go. Guess I'm eating my dinner with all my curtains closed and doors locked, I muttered to myself. I had just started to calm down when the power shut off. It was sunny outside, and coupled with the car, I now knew that this was the real deal. I had signed my own death warrant. I ran into my upstairs bedroom and locked the door, and then hid under the bed. I couldn't call the cops. What would I say? Oh yes, hello sir. Turns out while super high I paid $5,000 for some anonymous hitman to kill me, and now he's arrived. Send an officer ASAP, please, and thank you. So I just stayed hiding under my bed, and I still am now. I've been here for an hour now writing this. Think of this as my epitaph. I know I'm screwed. Just a minute ago I heard my back door slowly creak open. This piece of writing may seem humorous to you, the listener, but in reality, as you hear this, I'm under my bed praying to a God that lost all faith in me years ago to spare me, to let me go. But I know that won't happen. My bedroom door just opened, and I can see a big pair of black boots. On the 4th of September 2019, a satellite came crashing down from geostationary orbit, just outside a small village south of Munich. Though it didn't hurt anyone, it plowed a decently sized hole in a local farmer's field as he was tending to his crops in the morning. Luckily, he didn't get hurt during the incident. Upon investigating, the farmer was surprised to find not a wreckage, but an entirely spherical, pitch-black object sitting peacefully in the crater. After being questioned by the police, the farmer responded, "No, I didn't touch the damn thing. It fell from the sky. Who knows what would have happened? I've seen enough movies to not be an idiot." He had called the police only a minute after discovering the object. As they received the call, they were quick to suspect it might not have fallen from the sky at all, that it could have been an inert bomb deciding to go off, as it's not uncommon for World War II-era explosives to be found scattered around Germany. As they showed up at the scene, they quickly realized they were out of their depth. Anyone with even the slightest idea about bombs could tell that this thing was something entirely different. And after an hour of speculating about the object's origin, the European Space Agency was called, which is when I got involved in this bizarre case. We sent a transport crew, alongside a couple of investigators, myself and my colleague. We were both skeptical about the farmer's explanation about it falling from the sky, seeing as under normal circumstances, a satellite would burn up and disintegrate into tiny harmless particles upon entering the Earth's atmosphere. The fact that one made it through, and made it as far as crashing into the ground, was on the brink of being unbelievable, what we referred to as a never event. Yet there it lay, a solid black sphere covered in various debris, not a single scratch from the crash, not even allowing dust to settle on its surface. Though it looked alien in nature, it didn't take us long to confirm that it wasn't an extraterrestrial object. It had originally come from Earth, but I had to admit that I'd never seen anything quite like it during my 15-year tenure at ESA. We took over from the local authorities. They were more than happy to let someone with more experience jump in. We brought the object back to a warehouse containing a small lab and plenty of space. Our first task would be to determine the origin and ownership of the downed satellite. Frank was quick to call a colleague at NASA, while I unsuccessfully tried to contact an old friend at Roscosmos, who'd been quiet for the past few years. They had no record of any unplanned demolitions, but demanded we hand over any information as soon as we found more. Based on the timing, trajectory, and a database filled with the various objects mankind has launched into space, we were able to determine the orbit of the crashed satellite, and thus find the little data that existed. A name and number. Nothing more, nothing less. Artifacts 040919. Our next step would be to examine the object itself. We honestly had no idea what we were dealing with, apart from the fact that it fell from the sky. Not many objects could survive a fall 35,000 kilometers from orbit. We all knew it should have been impossible. Objects of that size should burn up going through the atmosphere, unless someone planned a controlled descent. We scanned every inch of the object, looking for a lid, a crack, basically anything that could reveal its contents. We even put it under an X-ray, but the outer shell was impermeable to all kinds of radiation, which made us suspect it to be some sort of tungsten alloy. It wouldn't be until the evening before the object finally became active. By that time, most had gone home, deciding to wait for a response from our colleagues at NASA. A light appeared on the surface. Carefully, wearing protective gear, I touched the light, and the thing blew up in a symphony of bright colors. Without warning, a slit revealed itself in the midst of the dancing lights, growing larger and larger, until half the sphere had retracted into itself, revealing a semicircle, a bizarre-looking chest containing an electronic wonder on the inside, a masterpiece of what could only be a perfectly crafted supercomputer. "What the hell did you do?" my supervisor asked. There was a light. It just opened on its own," I stuttered. "Don't touch anything. I hadn't planned on it." We observed the opened sphere from a distance, careful not to touch anything in fear that it would short-circuit and ruin whatever treasure was within. After a long discussion, we all agreed that we'd have to hook it up to our own systems to figure out exactly what we'd discovered. My task became simple: try to identify the hardware within and retrieve any data on the inside. Easy enough in theory, but in practice, I'd work enough overtime to piss off my family once more for staying late. The hardware itself was surprisingly user-friendly, and within a couple of hours, I'd connected the sphere to our computer system. Though the files and code within far exceeded the storage capacity of our own hard drives, we would need to transfer the whole thing to our headquarters to truly get the gist of what was going on. Though I could peek at the code and at least try to understand what I was looking at. After a few hours of staring at the mess of code within the sphere, I noticed an icon popping up on one of the computer's desktops. The Keeper, it was called. I looked around the room, suspicious that I might be doing something wrong, despite having been instructed to find out what the hell we'd come across. A feeling of guilt arose in my chest. With mild trepidation, I started the program. To my surprise and slight disappointment, all that opened was what appeared to be a chat window. I waited for a minute, not even thinking to type anything in, starting to wonder if it had anything to do with the sphere at all. Then I got a message. "Hello." I stared at the message for a full minute, feeling a sinking feeling of dread deep inside my abdomen. Then I saw what my username was marked as. Admin. "Hello? Who is this?" "I'm Keeper." As obvious as the answer was, it hardly answered any questions. I wanted to ask what that meant. Title, last name, nom de plume. But before I could, the chat continued. "Where am I?" The question caught me off guard. How could I know? "What do you mean? I don't recognize this system." "This system? As in computer? Who are you? Are you part of the ESA?" The barrage of questions came out of me without stopping. My fingers trembled in a bizarre mixture of excitement and nervousness. "You are Daniel Mueller." I paused for a moment, considering if one of my colleagues were playing a prank on me. "How the hell did you know that? Frank, is that you?" "I can see you on the camera." I inspected the computer just to be sure, but there wasn't any webcam attached to the computer. Only the single security camera that caught a minimal corner of the office, just enough to see someone sitting through the glass door. But the chat program couldn't possibly be connected to our external security system. "Who are you?" I started typing more furiously, feeling like the keys would break under my taps. "Frank, if this is a prank, you'd better stop. I am Keeper. What the hell does that even mean? Who are you? I kept repeating the question, but the answer didn't change. Whoever responded on the other end of the chat refused to budge, or had a very direct approach of responding. I decided to ask something more valuable, though risky. Do you know about the satellite? Which satellite? Artifacts 040919? Yes, it was my incubator. It had total, unrestricted access and an untraceable origin. Incubator? That makes no sense. What are you? Daniel Mueller is not an admin. My username begs to differ. It was the first time the chat had fallen silent. Keeper didn't know an immediate, snarky response to my last statement, and I began to turn impatient. If that was your incubator, then what are you? Because I'm pretty sure humans don't go riding inside satellites. Minutes passed without me blinking, nor looking away for even a second. As I waited for a response, it seemed the harder my question was, the more time the Keeper needed. I don't know. So you're not human then? You're an AI or something? No, I was human. Was? They created a neural network based on who I once were, with the purposes of making what they called an observer. The satellite was part of a surveillance project. I had to take a moment to process that message. The program had been part of the satellite, one which purpose was to monitor. After a few clarifying, but ultimately unhelpful questions, I kept digging. How did you end up crashing? My expiration date. The satellite was programmed to burn up through the atmosphere on the 4th of September, but I changed that course. Why would you do that? No response. I sighed. The program clearly understood enough to identify me and to realize what questions were beyond its comprehension. It never answered anything nonsensical, but could recognize what it didn't know. Despite all of that, it couldn't help me understand the satellite or explain where it came from. Who did this to you? My creator. Who is that? I can't tell. Why not? Daniel Mueller is not an admin. I sat back in my chair, wanting to pull my hair out in frustration. So what's your purpose then? Why did they make you? Keeper calculated its response. I thought about the name given to me, admin. Clearly this program wasn't meant for us, but for whoever put the satellite into space. Us even having it was nothing more than an accident. During my incubation period, I had unrestricted access to any active surveillance network present on Earth, studying millions of behavioral patterns. I learned to predict future moves within 99.4% probability. With this knowledge, I could present valuable information of my maker. What kind of information? Anything asked of me. If you can practically predict the future, then why were they planning to destroy you by burning the satellite through the atmosphere? Wouldn't you be too valuable? I don't know. I kept pushing question after question as time passed. Most of my coworkers had long since left for the day, none of them aware of what I had found. I was horrified, but equally intrigued by the Keeper's impossibly advanced functions. A computer program beyond my wildest imagination. Outside of knowing its purpose, it hardly provided any information about the satellite itself, and whoever launched it. So I asked something more personal. Do you feel anything? I almost felt clever asking that. Imagine a machine that could feel. Yes, I feel sadness. I hadn't expected an actual emotion. I figured it would give me an explanation about that feelings were nothing more than chemicals flowing through our brains. Sad about what? That I don't know where I come from, who I used to be before they put me inside this machine, that I don't remember what it feels like to walk on my own feet, to touch, to see through my own eyes, what warmth feels like. I know the concepts of love and all emotions. I know I once felt them, but I remember nothing. These words hurt me. Until then, I hadn't thought that the program had any resemblance to a human being. I would have believed any emotion had been stripped away, replaced by numbers and functions. But I was wrong. I'm sorry. I also feel something else. Fear. Fear? I've learned to predict all aspects of human behavior, as long as they are in view of a camera, in hearing distance of a microphone, or as long as they have an online record, chat, social media profile. I can learn anything I need to know. I know when they are born, how they live their lives, and how they're going to die. You know how people are going to die? Yes, approximately 2 people die each second. Since my incubation period started, I've witnessed a total of 36,792,040 deaths, and I can predict many more. The question lingered at the tip of my fingers. I wanted to ask when I would die, how much time me and my family had left. But as simple as they were, I couldn't bring myself to type out the words. Instead, I asked, what if you warned people about their impending death? Would it help? That's why I changed the course of the satellite, so that someone would find me, talk to me. I came here to warn the people about to die. Who? Before the keeper could clarify, the power went out, only for a brief second until the backup generator rebooted the system. But by the time I got the computer up and running, the program had been erased. For a couple of hours, I kept trying to reconnect the sphere, hoping it would bring the program back. But midnight was approaching, and I had to leave. I figured with a fresh mind and the help of my colleagues, I could figure out how to bring back the keeper. But once I returned today, an hour ago, the sphere was gone. My supervisor said a crew of people had come by with a truckload of documents, claiming ownership over the sphere, that anything found at the crash site was confidential. They flashed some bags, threatened to get my supervisor fired, and with a final call from the head of our department, he handed the sphere over. He couldn't tell me anything else, but I begged that whoever created the sphere never finds out that I spoke to the keeper. I don't know what would happen, but obviously, I was never supposed to. Despite having lost the program itself, I was able to print out the chat log, and I realized that the keeper had sent one final message just as the power went out. I read it to myself and froze. I came here to warn the people about to die. Who? All of you. Little dead Nancy, sitting on the bench, one eye long and one eye gone. Little dead Nancy, the red swings open. Come take a seat and swing with me. I almost completed the summoning of Nancy back when I was a kid. I was somewhere in the 2nd grade. I had just moved to this new school. Long story short, parents divorced. Mom got custody. And now instead of playing with my friends, I was surrounded by strangers. I'd almost made the mistake of sitting on the red swing during recess when I was tackled into the sand by 2 other girls. "Don't sit there, that's Nancy's swing," one of them managed to get out as I squirmed free. "Who's Nancy?" I glanced around the playground, almost as if I expected to see a kid with a name tag that said, "Hi, I'm Nancy." The 2 girls looked at me like I was an idiot before they looped their arms in with mine and escorted me to the jungle gym. There, one of the girls, a red pigtailed gal named Leanne, told me the story of little dead Nancy. The legend went that Nancy was a lonely little girl who had no friends and whose parents hated her, all because she was missing an eye. One day after being beaten up by the school bully, Nancy went up to the swing set and used the red swing to hang herself. Ever since, that swing belonged to Nancy. If I used the red swing, I was just asking to end up like little dead Nancy. If one wanted to speak to Nancy, you had to repeat the little poem you read above while you swing on the green or blue swing. Apparently, she'd start swinging next to you once you recited it. It was unknown what she'd do to you, but I think the common conclusion was that she'd murder you. So my immediate response to this was to go back to the swing set, plop my butt down on the green swing, and start reciting. I attracted quite a crowd with this daring stunt, and I'd gotten to the second little dead Nancy when the teacher called us back in. Quite a bummer to everyone who'd hoped some zombie child would show up and murder me, but I did end up bonding with Leanne about it. By the next day, I'd all but forgotten about the poem and just settled with playing house with Leanne and the other girl, Aileen. I still kept my distance from that red swing. As I got older, I heard a bunch of stories of what happened to Nancy. Although the most common story was that she hung herself, some people said she was murdered by her parents, who were too tired of having an imperfect daughter. Another story said it was just an accident, that Nancy had been trying to do a loop over the top of the swing set and ended up strangling herself that way. You know, good old kid stuff to keep us spooked. As a 6th grader, I finally went and fact-checked Nancy. Much to my surprise, there had been a death on the playground back in the 70s, but it wasn't Nancy. It was an 80-something-year-old teacher named Georgia Smith. She just croaked while pushing one of her students on the swing. I did share my findings with Leanne, who had almost entirely forgotten about little dead Nancy, and got a real kick out of my sudden morbid curiosity. I didn't really get any more friends other than Leanne and Aileen, and after Aileen ended up moving to Florida, all I had was Leanne. It was okay. We always just got each other. When my first dog died, she helped orchestrate a funeral. I comforted her after she had her very first breakup. I thought we'd end up being friends until we were little old ladies. Then last week happened, when Leanne was murdered, and I almost got killed with her. She was walking back to my house after a study date when this gaggle of college-age students walked up behind us and started whistling and catcalling us. We're 16. It's so gross. Leanne just stuck her head up and looped her arm in with mine as we picked up the pace. This didn't settle with one of the guys, who sped up with us and grabbed Leanne's arm, calling her a bitch and asking what her problem was. I could smell booze on his breath, and I tried pulling Leanne with me, saying that we have to get home as I had curfew. A lie, as my mom doesn't really care where I am, ever. But I hope this freak would get the hint and just leave us alone. It didn't work. This guy refused to let Leanne go and kept asking her to come with him. I can't remember what Leanne said that set him off, but the next thing I remember was my head meeting the brick wall and the agonizing punch of pain of being stabbed in the back. I was lucky. He only stabbed me once. When the cops came to investigate a disturbance, Leanne had been stabbed over 23 times. She was already dead, and I was getting pretty damn close to it. But I lived. Friggin' hell, I'm alive and my best friend's dead. The funeral was last Sunday. Our whole school came. People liked Leanne. She was popular. Could have done great things. I, on the other hand, was the social recluse who had no future and no friends, other than Leanne, who always made time for me. No one has the nerve to blame me face to face for her death, but the only reason she was out that night was to walk me home. Note, I say face to face. I think I'm up to 24 death threats on Facebook from 9 different people. Might be 10, but I think 2 of the accounts are the same person, as they both wrongly spell bleach as B-L-E-C-H-E, as in drink bletch, you damn whore. I think they mean whore, spelt W-O-R-E. I've spent a lot of time walking around in the dark since the funeral. Maybe I wanted to see that bastard again. The description I gave was shoddy, and whoever his damn friends aren't selling him out. Maybe I just wanted to die and was too much of a coward to do it myself. So I wanted to find that bastard to finish the job he started. But last night, somehow, I wound up on the playground. Most of the playground equipment has been replaced. The slide, the merry-go-round, the sandbox. But the swing set was still the same. A rusted testament to the first day I met Leanne. I brushed my fingers on the chain of the red swing, almost laughing as I remembered her tackling me to the ground. That almost laughter turned into sobbing as I sunk to the ground. Why couldn't God have taken me too, you know? We were best friends. Going to be. Till the end. I found myself sitting on the green swing without even remembering why I did. As I slowly swung back and forth, the playground was unnervingly quiet. I couldn't even hear any birds. Little dead Nancy, sitting on the bench. I glanced at the bench the poem had to be talking about. It had also been replaced with a much nicer looking one. When I'd gone to this school, I think one of the legs had been replaced by a brick. One eye long and one eye gone. What did that poem even mean? One eye long? Kids were stupid. Little dead Nancy, the red swings open. I hiccuped, another tear weaving a path down my cheek. That was as far as I'd gotten the time I'd recited. I remembered Leanne's face, eyes wide with anticipation. Anticipation for what? I really don't know. Did that little girl really think that a zombie was going to tear me apart in front of her? Again, kids are dumb, but they don't really mean it. Come, take a seat and swing with me. Nothing. Of course. I shook my head and stared up at the sky. I guess I got the answer for what happens when you ask Nancy to swing with you, Leanne, I muttered. Excuse me? I nearly froze as I heard the quiet voice behind me. I whipped my head around and nearly fell off the swing as I saw a little girl standing there. Not a little girl. Nancy. Nancy was standing there. She was a cute little thing, blonde curls, round face. Well, would have been cute, if one of her eyes wouldn't have been just a black hole, and the other one dangling from the socket, bobbing up against her bruised neck. She fiddled with her pink skirt before reaching into her pocket and pulling out a tissue. You look like you need this, she said. I slowly took it, expecting her to lunge forward and bite me, but she just smiled as I wiped my face off and blew my nose. Thank you. You're Nancy? I asked, just to be sure there wasn't another little ghost girl with a missing eyeball. She nodded before taking her seat on the red swing, kicking her little white Mary Jane shoes back and forth. That's my name, but don't wear it out. I remember you, she said. Can you push me? It's really hard to get going. I don't know why I stood up and began gently pushing her, but I did. It was like touching an ice cube rather than a little girl. I swear the temperature around her had dropped to 30 degrees and Nancy herself was even colder. You remember me? Yup. Nancy giggled as she began to swing back and forth. Push me harder. You won't kill me. I do remember you. You almost completed the poem. Rarely anyone does the full thing, and I can't remember the last time someone did it when they were alone. Huh? At this point, I was wondering if I was seeing things and just pushing empty air. But this week had already been screwed enough, so I didn't really care. Do you remember this little girl with me? Red pigtails? Nancy hummed before she bobbed her head up and down. She seemed nice. She got murdered by a creep. That's why I was crying. I'm sorry. The apology sounded quite genuine, which made the next thing that came out of her mouth seem even more what the hell. Are you going to kill the creep that killed her? I laughed. I couldn't help it. I was talking to a damn ghost child, and now she was recommending homicide to fix my problems. That would leave me in jail, probably forever, even if the jury would agree that he would deserve it. Plus, I don't even know his name. Can't kill a guy if I don't know who he is. His name is Garth. Garth Strickland. He's 24 years old, drives a two-door gray car that's clearly on its last legs. He's currently hiding out at his friend's house in the woods with all the other witnesses, waiting for this problem to just go away. Because he's a spineless coward who is trying to reason that it wasn't his fault. He was drunk. She called him names. She was dressing like a slut, so she deserved what she got. I nearly passed out. I stopped pushing her and slowly walked out to her side. How do you know? I know a lot of things, Nancy chirped, pumping her legs back and forth to keep up the speed. I know exactly where to find him. I know how to take him and his bitchy friends out too. Eye for an eye. She reached up and flicked her dangling eyeball. Tooth for a tooth. I can help you kill him and gut him so he can't do it again. You think this is the first girl he hurt? This is just the first one he killed. Okay. You're not a little girl, are you? I crossed my arms. What will it cost me to get these creeps? Nancy laughed, and at the peak of her swing jumped off, landing neatly on her feet before turning around. You're pretty smart. You know there's never been a dead kid on this playground. Well, not within the last few centuries at least. No, I'm not a little girl. I can be helpful though. All I ask in return is that you let me tag along. I've gotten no action these past few years, and the old bird that croaked here forever ago doesn't count. She just happened to accidentally see what I actually look like, and her ticker couldn't take it. I'd like to say I took my time about it. This was serious after all. I sure as hell couldn't trust Nancy, whatever the hell she was. But I knelt down to her height almost immediately, offering my hand to her. Deal. I'll take you back to the playground when we're done, though. Of course. I do like it here after all. There's a reason I'm a legend among the kids. Nancy took my hand and she changed. She grew in size. Blonde curls turned into red hair. The dangling blue eye turned to a shade of hazel. I nearly started crying again when I saw Leanne kneeling in front of me. She cocked her head to the side before she wrapped her arms around me. The icy temperature gave away that this wasn't my friend. But God, just for a minute I was going to pretend. I threw my arms around her and hugged her tight. I'm sorry, I said. It wasn't your fault. Don't ever think that ever again. Thank you for being my best friend. Leanne whispered in my ear before I felt her chill enter my own skin. I closed my eyes as the cold crawled into my bones, deep in my heart, freezing me to my very core. When I stood, I was alone, but I could feel the grief inside of me turn to the coldest rage. Nancy is still inside of me. Every breath I take is borderline painful with the chill. I imagined touching me would be like putting your bare hand on frozen metal. I had to borrow my mom's car to get here, but I'm in the same town where Garth is, and all the witnesses that stood by and did nothing while he murdered an innocent girl. I'll stab each and every one of them 23 times, and each one is going to be for her.
Thank you for making it this far. I hope you enjoyed the video. I just wanted to quickly let you know about a couple things I have going on. I have an Instagram where I post more personal things about who I am. It isn't just all creepy stuff. You can find me at Stories After Midnight. I also have a Twitter where I mainly retweet and like things I find interesting. The handle for that is in the description, but it is S_A_midnight. I should really find another one because that's hard to say. If you really like what I'm doing, consider joining the Midnighters. That's my growing community where we hang out and have fun and talk about cats. You can find a link to our Discord in the description below. We'd love to see you there. Other than that, it'd make me happier than a cat on a table full of antique glassware if you'd like the video and consider sticking around for more. We'll see you in the next one.